Do you know what your credit score says? This week on the Blue Collar Proud Show. Hey, everybody out there in Proud Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. It's the show all about having and living the blue collar business dream. If you can dream it, you can build it. Taylor and I believe that. My name is Carter Harkins. With me every week here across the desk is Taylor Hill.
How are you?
Good, man. We're going to get into a topic today that I know is important. Both of us have had experiences here and a lot to talk about. We're talking about credit, talking about credit scores, credit reports, credit history, all of those things. So it's going to be a good conversation, I think. Well,
I don't know how good it's going to be, but it's going to be a conversation. Let's put it this way. It's going to be a very informative conversation.
Yes. Yeah. Patty Lawrence is going to join us here in a little bit to really flesh it out and make sure it's a thorough conversation.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I would like to know from you, what is your experience in your lifetime with credit, and has it changed at all since you started building credit?
Oh gosh, yeah. So my dad had some financial issues, growing up. I mean, some things that just kind of hit him out of nowhere, but they were debt related issues that were caused because of debt. And so he just made up his mind that debt was evil. Was never going to have any more debt, and he, as a result, didn't have any credit cards or bank lines of credit or anything else, just no credit at all.
Right.
And I always thought, wow, that's really cool. What dedication. That's awesome. And, you hear people talk about, a debt-free way of life. Yeah. And oftentimes with that comes a credit-free way of life, of living, because you can't really have credit and use it and stay out of debt. Yeah. So even if it's temporary. So, that was the mentality. Anyway, I was 32 years old before I had my first credit card. I just trucked along in my dad's example and thought that was great until I started realizing that, man, I can't do anything. I can't even rent a car without a credit card. This is ridiculous. And so I decided, no, I'm going to start building some credit. I need to have really good credit. And so started that process. But as a result, I was 32 when I started. So a lot of times what happens is they pull a credit report and they go, there's just not enough history here to really determine your risk and all of these things. So it still bites me. And we're talking a decade ago or longer, that this happened. But yeah, it still impacts me today. So if I had it to do over again, I would have established credit right at 18 and started building really good, solid credit, even not using it, staying committed to staying out of debt, but building credit nonetheless, so that could work for me.
Right.
Yeah. And I know you had experiences too.
Well, yeah. And mine is a little bit different because growing up, it was all about the relationship you had with your banker. My grandfather's, one of his best friends was his banker. He needed money. He was a farmer. He went in. They didn't have credit. It was all on relationships. And as well as my dad. My dad was all on relationships as well. And I'm not sure when it all changed. I think when credit cards became very prolific and people didn't know how to kind of deal with credit cards and all that, I think the score came in and the three bureaus set in. But I've got a lot of experience in there, and we'll get that on the back end. But I want to hear what Patty has to say first. Can we get into that?
So Patty Lawrence is one of the CFOs at TurboExecs. She's a regular on the show. She's contributed to our Frontlines reports for quite a while. She's been a guest as well. Today, though, we thought she'd be the perfect person to really drill down on this subject and talk about some of the specifics around credit scores. Things like, how it impacts your options as a business owner, how it goes right to valuations, identity, security, those kinds of things. But she had some really good points. So let's roll the interview, and afterwards we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more.
Sounds great.
All right. Hey, Patty, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks so much.
So we're talking today about financial matters around credit scores, and there's a lot of people that, this gets them a little bit tense and upset because they're very committed to running their business on cash, and credit doesn't seem to be something that they're concerned about. But you're a CFO and you've worked with a lot of businesses. I want your perspective on why credit scores matter.
Perfect question. I will tell you that, say maybe over the past decade, credit scores have gone from being used in kind of one fashion, one particular instance is really just going to take out a loan, to really impacting other decisions, being used in other decisions that affect the person that's trying to get things done, the average person. And the credit score, at its core, is really an indicator of how well you handle money. That is kind of what it's perceived, okay? So it's wrapped around that. And I would say it's similar to, let's say, standardized testing nowadays. And because standardized testing is used for everything. So you have to get used to the fact that that's now the environment that we're operating in, and we need to adapt to that. Because it's used for so many things. It's used for purchasing a car, taking out a loan, applying for a credit card, renting or buying a home, getting a cell phone, deposits for utilities. It's just out there, and it's being used in so many different ways that people need to be aware of that. Even if you think you don't need credit, it's probably a good thing to have, because it goes into the decision-making process for so many things. Yeah. So
Don't you think that is one of the things that most people overlook? I mean, when I tell people that when they're getting life insurance, when they're getting their car insurance, when people are making a decision about doing business with them, I mean, there are so many places that actually look at someone's credit score. And you're getting judged on your credit score, and I hate that, but that's just kind of the way life is.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Taylor. And I would have expected this to be one of your Financial Fridays topics, because I'm telling you, it's everywhere. Insurance companies use it to predict the likelihood of you filing a claim and the amount you might file. Mm-hmm. Utilities use it as to decide if you need to make a deposit for your service. Cell phone providers use it to decide whether or not they're going to, make you put down a deposit as well. There's so many things.
I just heard a couple that said that they went to put their son in, or they were looking at a private school to put their son in, and in the application they were asked for. Or they were told that they would be running a credit check on them, even though they were paying their tuition in cash. It was still part of the factor of whether or not they would be allowed.
I know, and it's crazy, because in some employers in the hiring process want to run a credit check on you. So I can't tell you what, good and bad. I can just tell you what's out there, and it's getting more and more pervasive. But what I can tell you is, the use of that credit score is being used as a predictor. It's being used to price products. And when I say price products, think about insurance, your insurance policies and premiums. It's being used there. And it's being used to assess risk. So in insurance policies, that has obviously a big impact on that, as well as when you're going to get a mortgage. Okay, so the price you pay via the interest rate has a risk factor assigned to it, and your credit score is going to impact that. So, some of the ways I want to say you can be responsible in your uses of credit and kind of increasing your credit score is to manage that credit to stay below 30% of your limit. So that's kind of an adjuster out there to say, look at the total credit that you're being extended and don't exceed 30%. That means you're kind of managing your money wisely and managing that credit in a responsible manner. Use your cards regularly, but then pay them off, and make your payments on time. Don't be late. Those dings show up in your credit reports, which is a separate thing, credit score, credit report, but they are linked together. Also, review that credit report on an annual basis, at least, and dispute major errors if you find any.
Yeah, I think the other thing that really helped a lot of people, and people may not realize this, they had so much fraud and problems with judgments and those types of things on the credit report this last July. They literally stripped all that out of the credit report. So it really is just your credit. It doesn't have to do with any other kind of financial things that you've had. And it's helped a lot of people get a better score, but it also doesn't people don't need to understand it doesn't discount those things either. There are other ways that they're finding those other things if it's you, but it's not showing up on your credit score, and that does help some people.
Right. And honestly, you lead right into this. The benefits of having a good credit score can be lower interest rates. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're a business owner, that's going to translate into increased profits and better cash flow. It goes right to your bottom line. From a personal standpoint, you can have deposit requirements waived. The higher your credit score is, because you're less of a risk. You can have better insurance rates as a result of that. And again, that's, increasing your profits and bettering your cash flow. And it also results in easier loan approval. Now, if anybody's ever gone through the loan approval process, tons of paperwork required. And if they run into a little speed bump, I'll call it, they come back to you for more and more and more and more papers to go through that process. So the easier that approval process is, the smoother it goes, and the better result for you.
Patty, that's great perspective, and I really appreciate your expertise on this subject. What's the best way for people to be able to get a hold of you online?
I would say go directly to our website, www.turboexecs.com. They can email me at Patty, Patty, @turboexecs.com, or reach me on the phone at the area code 717-925-3270. And I do have one last thing.
Sure.
You can get a free copy for free, your credit score, even if you aren't a customer, from Discover Card. So if you go to, this is not a plug for Discover Card, but you can access that for free. Just go to your browser and Google that, and they are providing it. I've seen it on a couple of different commercials.
Oh, wow. Good tip. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate you being on today.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Man, so even when credit is not a part of the transaction, it can still impact your ability to do business as a business owner with things like, utility bills, setting up a utility in a brand new location for your business, or cell phone services for your team, a lease, those kinds of things. Huge impact for a business owner. But there's another way that we didn't really get into a whole lot in talking with Patty, but I know it's incredibly important. One of the biggest reasons that you want to check your credit report and your credit score often, if not have a service to manage it, is because of something that happened to you. So I want you to tell the story a little bit about what just recently happened with you.
Well, I'm going to tell that story, but I'm going to go back a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think there's a couple of things that I would like to just touch on, and so that people understand that when you have credit, you can do some amazing things. I bought my first house at 18.
That still
because
just kills me.
my dad, who was really into money, kind of showed me how to do some things with relationships and whatnot back there, and you can translate that into credit today. So as long as you start really building credit and making payments and staying within those ratios that Patty talked about, you have a lot of flexibility. So it's very, very important to know that. The second thing is, it's really, really important to check your credit score at least once a year, and you can do it free. I think it's myfreecreditsreport.com. I will put it freecreditcheck.com. There's several of them, but you can go direct to them, and they'll point you. You can go to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, and they'll point you in the right direction, and you can get your credit score from your credit report. And this is the thing. Everybody is concerned about the score. Forget about the score. What you want to be checking is the report. So you want to line by line and make sure that everything on your credit report is correct. There are a lot of people out there that share the same names. Sometimes that gets messed up. One of the things I talked about with the judgments, the reason that judgments have come off the credit report is because of all the confusion and misspelling and names and same people and whatever, and they go after, just because you have the same name, they come after you. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. So the reason that it's important is twofold. Number one, you just want to make sure that it's correct, because if anybody turns in the wrong information, you have the right to challenge that information. And they have to turn in to the reporting agency proof that you missed a payment or late on a payment, whatever it is they're saying that you think is wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay, you get to challenge that. Secondly is, it is rampant right now with identity theft. Okay? Everybody knows when they get charged something on a credit card. The credit cards are really good about calling people these days and saying, hey, is this your charge? And you can say yes or no. If you don't have that, then my first call would be to your credit card to set up any kind of a fraud watch. And it's kind of a pain in the tail, but it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
So here, when I travel, Tina calls the banks and says, hey, Taylor and Carter are going. I don't even know if you know this, Carter.
No, I know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think I've told you this. Mm-hmm. But she calls and lets the bank know that we're traveling. She calls all the credit card companies that we have, the credit cards that we use, and says they're traveling. So they know that if there's a charge along the way, she lets them know if we're going by car or if we're going by plane, so that it's taken care of. Very important. You've got to take control of your security and your credit situation.
Yeah.
And that's really it. So let me just tell you what happened to me. And this was after we interviewed Patty, so it didn't really come up, but I think it's really important. So I got home on a Monday afternoon, going through my mail, got a bill from a telephone company that I not only have never done business with, but will never do business with. But I had also been out of the country the month before. And so when I looked at it, it had my name on it, my address, everything was correct. I thought, this is weird. And my wife's like, what? And I said, well, I got this bill. And she said, well, maybe it's from being out of the country. I thought, that's kind of odd, but
it's
a
different cell phone company.
Yeah, it's a whole different cell phone company. So, okay, I'll open it and see what's going on. So I open it up, and I'm thinking it's probably, solicitation of some. There's some that look like bills and some that look like checks, and they're just solicitations. So I opened it up, and sure enough, it was a bill for a little less than $119. Totally filled out in my name, and because all of the cell phone bills are in my name, I know what it takes to open up an account with a cell phone company. So I immediately called them and said, this is not me. I don't know who did this. Can you identify who it is? Do you know what state it's in, where it's at? They couldn't give me any of that information. I said, okay, so I want to know to open this account. And I said, and I will be more than happy to have the police call you if you don't answer these questions. But I have 3 questions. Did they have my social? The answer was yes. Did they have my driver's license? The answer is yes. Did they have my birthday? The answer was yes. So I said, all right. And I'm pretty sure it came from the Equifax breach that happened, I don't know, 5, 6 months ago. So I've been watching my credit, but they sent the bill to my house, so I didn't even pull my credit yet. I usually pull them in June and December. So I immediately knew that there was a problem. So here are the things that you have to do. When you get your identity stolen, the very first thing you want to do is sit down and write out all your credit cards, where you bank, where your business banking account is, where your personal banking account is, and make all the pertinent phone calls that you need to make to let them know that somebody has your identity. That's number 1. Number 2, you want to make sure that your bank has what I would call a double opt-in and almost every bank has, you can go in there and ask for it, that they will text you a code. Somehow you have to double opt in to get into your account. Okay. We've always had that with our business, so that wasn't a problem, but I set all that up on all my accounts with my personal bank immediately, and had it on some of my accounts, but not everything. So we set that up, and even my wife went and set it up with all hers. So all that gets done. Then there's a place with FTC that you want to go that literally walks you through the exact steps that you want to take. And I'm going to make sure in the show notes when this goes up that link's in the show notes. So go there if you guys need to see that. But the Federal Trade Commission has a form there that kind of lets you walk through what you have to do. And it's really good because once you file with the FTC, they have it on record. So if anybody files with the IRS, if anybody does anything crazy, then they have it on record, and it's going to protect you. So it's real important to do that. Okay. Then part of what they're going to tell you to do is a series of questions and answers and whatnot, depending on the kind of theft and how it happened. They're going to ask you whether you're going to need to get in touch with Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax. Here's the thing. If you get in touch with one, they're required by law to let the other two know. But I'm telling you, don't just get in touch with one. Get in touch with all three of them. Both Equifax and TransUnion has a way that you can get online today and lock your credit. In other words, you can lock it. You can do it via your cell phone or a laptop or desktop. Real easy to do. You can unlock it and lock it. And so if somebody needs to if you're going to buy a house and they need to pull your credit, you need to say, you need to pull my credit on this day. I'm fixing to unlock it. You pull it during this 12-hour period because as soon as this is over with, I'm locking it again. So you're locking it and unlocking and letting people pull your credit. People just can't pull your credit.
Yeah.
Now to do that, you have to make sure, you go in and set that up. Now Experian's a little bit different. I don't like this, but they charge $25 a month for that service, unless you've been a victim of identity theft. If you've been a victim of identity theft, there's a bunch of stuff you have to do. I mean, when you contact them, you have to not only send in here's the thing, that the thief has your social, the thief has your name, the thief has your birthday, the thief has your driver's license. Well, those are four of the things you got to send in.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing you have to send in is a utility bill. It cannot be a lease. It cannot be anything that could be faked. So it'll have to be a real utility bill. Your water bill, your electric bill. Well, what if you don't pay the water bill, their electric bill? Well, now, can't be a phone bill. There's a whole lot it can't be. So you may have to call them and find out what else you can send them that'll prove that you are who you say you are. But you got to send all this documentation in.
Man.
Yeah, you got to write them a letter, tell them what happened, and you have to send a police report. So, yes, that's the other thing you need to do. Even if everybody tells you don't need one, file a police report. You'll, like I did here, I filed it. They came out. It literally took 5 minutes after they got there. Showed them the bill, showed them what happened, showed them the phone company sent me an email saying that they've fixed it. So, I'm not charged for that. But you want to get in touch with the bureaus that let that phone company pull that. Now, here's why. You want to take that off. Because by law, the people you do business with right now can pull your credit anytime they want to. And it's a practice that they all do just to make sure that you're still a good steward of your money. Mm-hmm. That's all they're doing. They're just checking. So if I hadn't have written and said, pull this off, then that phone company could just come back and pull mine whenever, which means if that person tries to open the account again, for whatever reason, that company could go pull, and I don't want that company pulling and messing with my credit.
Right.
So you kind of have to overdo. I mean, my wife is like, that kind of overdoing everything? And I'm like, no.
Not when what's
you
at
gotta
stake is
overdo.
your entire identity. No. This has taken you 2 full days during the week to deal with
Oh, yeah.
all of this stuff so far. And likely it'll take a little bit more as you go, but you were lucky in that it was the first bill that somebody tried on you, or a first time somebody tried to use your identity to get something. And you were able to shut it down very quickly, which is awesome. Not everybody is that fortunate.
No.
And we've seen people who don't check their credit regularly, who don't, check their own mail and open every envelope and look at what's going on and try to figure it out, who are surprised sometimes 1 or 2 years later when they go to actually do something they really want to do, like buy a new home,
Oh, yeah.
and suddenly realize what a mess they're in and they had no idea. So it can be that bad. I'm so glad that it's not absolutely taken over your life. But still, 2 full days, that's a lot of time to spend cleaning up a mess that somebody else created for you.
Well, and it's still out there. And here's the reality of the whole thing is they think that 50 to 80,000, million people, 50 to 80 million Americans have their information out there. They just thieves waiting.
Yeah.
To use it.
Yeah. That's almost a quarter of U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
So 1 in 4 people, and you may be that one. So it's absolutely necessary to check.
Yeah. And if they're opening accounts and doing that, they're looking for people that have good scores. And I've got a really good score.
Yep.
And so they're looking for those people who are older, have really good scores, and they don't think they're paying attention.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people would have gotten that bill, would have just torn it in half, thrown it in the trash, and walked out. I look at my mail. I look at everything that comes in, even if it's junk mail, and determine what it is and then throw it away. Here's the other thing I do. I've been doing this forever, shredding all my bills. All my old bills get shredded. I have them for a certain amount of time for tax purposes, but when I get rid of them, I sit down about once every 2 years and I have a shredding party. And all my old stuff gets shredded. There's nothing, there's not a check, there's not a register, there's not anything that gets out of my house that's not shredded. So I know they're not going through my trash, which is a way that a lot of people, lose some of their stuff. Mm-hmm. And identity theft is also different than people messing with your credit card. So, but the thing that's kind of similar, and this is one of the things I've learned, is a lot of times they'll do a small charge, and I would consider $119 a relatively small charge, before they will do something like huge. Okay? They do the same thing on credit cards.
Yeah.
If you need to look for those little bitty $1, $2 charges, because people don't think anybody's going to flag them, and your credit card company knows about that as well. But just watch for those things because it really makes a difference. So, it's up to you to guard and establish a good credit. And so when something like this happens, you can get mad and throw things and whatever, but that's not going to help you. What you really need to do is sit down and go through the motions and take the steps and protect yourself as best you can. And then keep all that documentation and information somewhere safe, because you may have to use it over and over and over again in the future, determining that something is not yours.
Good stuff. Thanks. Appreciate it. Great episode. Just a few things to wrap up for this episode. Want to just thank, we had a great comment on episode number 119, which was the episode Making the Most of the Slow Season, when we interviewed Chuck Roydhouse. There was a comment in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group on the takeaways post. And this is from Tersh Blissett. I'm not sure, Tersh, how you pronounce your last name. She said, y'all made several great points. I love the comment about training during the slow season. We train and prepare for the busy season during what is traditionally our slow season. But the other thing we do is sell maintenance agreements on a monthly pay schedule, which helps to ensure that some additional cash flow comes in even in the months that we aren't working as much, which I thought was a great point and something that we didn't cover in that episode, which is why I'm bringing it up here. I think maintenance agreements are great. It does take additional work to maintain those, but the difference is that you can guarantee you're going to have income in the slower season because you're shifting that those maintenance periods from when everybody wants maintenance into the slower season when nobody's thinking about it. And if you can do that, we call it the shifter lifter strategy around here. Okay. You're shifting when everybody's hitting your phones and you can't get to everybody, you're missing work because you just simply can't do all the work. Well, there's a lot of existing customers in that workload during those busy seasons. And if you can shift it off to a slower part of the year, you're going to actually have more time for new customers during the busiest part of the year. Well, if you continually add new customers and continually retain old customers, guess what? Your business grows and you solve a lot of those seasonal cash flow issues. So I loved her idea about maintenance agreements, and I wanted to just mention that here.
Yeah, and I also think the maintenance agreements work really well. When you in those areas, because in lawn care, it's tough to shift anything out.
You can't mow in February.
Right. So having those maintenance agreements and having them pay a little bit less during, the season, but you're getting that money year round, I think is a really good idea.
Very good. We're going to be speaking quite a bit this month in April. If you are interested to see where we're going to be, then just download the Blue Collar Proud Show app. It's free download, available in your favorite app store. And check out the events tab in the app, and you'll find out exactly where we're going to be. One last thing, remember that you can hang out with us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. It's a great place to meet other owners, hear what they're doing, see what works, chat with us, and, just hang out. So you can always find out about all the other places where you can connect with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. That is going to do it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for listening. We also want to thank the people that make this show happen every week. Some great people that absolutely give their blood, sweat, and tears to this show to make sure that it's successful. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business that you hate as it does to build one that you're proud of. Prison or paradise, it's your choice. So why not build it the Blue Collar Proud way? We'll see you next time.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.